Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michael Seville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
Another day, another way, brother. Happy to be back here and the place to be, Community Beacon. For us, it's a pre-recorded show, guys, but still, please engage.
Sun is shining.
We get that natural light. That's the best light. Natural light, the best light is a natural light. Guys, welcome, Community Beacon. You guys will be tuning in and watching this at about 6:30. We wanted to pre-record this episode. We got, a little scheduling conflict. We definitely love to be here with you live, but either way, you will get the message. Real quick, let's get into some quick housekeeping. Please, guys, remember to like, subscribe, share. Let people know that we're on. Let people know that we're giving excellent information. I think it's the 33rd episode. I believe last episode was 32, if I'm not mistaken. And this is the 33rd episode, which has significant, that number has significant meaning. And that's interesting that we just got up out of Easter as well. So here we are out of Easter. Here we are, the 33rd episode. I'm not going to say that this was ordained. But it's interesting that everything aligns as such. Also, guys, remember Monday nights. What happens Monday nights? Oh, there it is. Motivational Mondays, guys. I'm coming to you just right around 8:55. Last week was just as impactful. We spoke about what it takes. I got into some real estate stuff. I got a couple of real estate questions that I was able to answer, which I love to do. If you want to ask me some real estate stuff on Monday nights, I am definitely open for that. You guys know that's my calling. And of course, we also got into what it takes, mastering the mundane. Listen, I don't care what it is that you do. It could be sports. It can be real estate. I know we're watching these TV shows. Things can be thought of as entertainment, even movies. The best actors and the masters of their craft master the mundane. They are reading that script 1,000 times till you get sick of the script. They are bouncing that basketball up and down for about 6 to 8 hours a day. I know you love the game, but you really have to dig deep when you're doing that, 24/7, 6 to 8 hours a day minimum. For 8, 9, 10, 11 months at a time. It's not the same. It's not the same. So check that show out. I spoke about that. And of course, we go on to Wednesdays. It starts with me. Who's on? It starts with me this Wednesday, Joel.
It starts with me. We have Dr. Anissa Riley.
Okay.
She's pretty awesome, man. She's got great wisdom to part with all those that join in. So you're going to enjoy that. So please be there, 12:30. It starts with me, Google, Spotify, Anchor, and also Apple. All right. Hey, also you can find us on YouTube.
Awesome, guys. And of course, we culminate on Fridays at 6:30, Community Beacon. We are here for you. We're here shedding the light. All these things are just like implementation. These things are not only things that we talk about and we expound upon, but we're implementing in our own lives. And of course, we are getting to, we're already in the third week of April. Or was it the third or the fourth week?
Man, we're about to close it out. This is today marks the
this is the fourth show because there's 5 Fridays in April.
Right.
So this is the 4th show in April. And we're getting into it. If you guys have been paying attention, if not, we've been talking about what we would tell our younger selves. Last week was just as impactful as the week before, where we got into the miseducation of Joel and Michael. Like, listen, Man, you know why I love these shows is that
What's
it
up?
gives us so much time to reflect. Like the reflection is there, thinking about the adjustments, that things that we get to kind of think over in our lives, and I that last show especially, I really appreciate it. It gives you know what else it does? It gives me grace for the people that we spoke about. We spoke about our fathers, we spoke about our mothers, we spoke about the experiences that we had, and just think about because now we're in those shoes now, right? Like we're in the shoe of being the parent. We're in the shoe of being the older mentor. I turned around and now I am the OG, right? I'm no longer the youngest in the bunch. Remember there was a time, I don't know if you remember. You're a little bit older than I am.
Ha, ha. All right. Ha.
Let's jog our memories. I mean, there was a time when I was the youngest. I was always the youngest in the group. I loved listening to older people talk. I loved elder wisdom. And when I say elder, I'm not saying they would have to be 60, 50, 40, 30 years old. I'm talking about people who are 25, 27, 30. People who came. I was always the youngest. Now I go into the gym and I'm like, I don't know if I think I might be one of the oldest people here in this gym now. So it's like the tables have turned and they've turned that fast. People, it's fleeting. This time is fleeting. So today we get into and we have the opportunity to talk to our younger selves, and by that I mean our children. We're going to speak to that. We're going to talk about what would we have told a younger Michael, what would we have told a younger Joe, and I'm sure we can get into that, brother. What do you have to say about so far what we have lined up for tonight?
I love it. I love it. All in all, it's like, what am I here to pass on to my kid? And the thing is I've got so much, so much to pass on. I think one of the first things that I would pass on to my son is be honest. Have good integrity. So that's going to be my number one thing. It's like, listen, there's going to be many difficulties that you're going to face. I mean, if I was like looking into the camera, I was like, listen, Jonah, you're going to go through a whole lot of stuff. There'll be a lot of stuff that you're going to go through, and you're going to have difficulty. You're going to have difficulties. You're going to have troubles. You're going to have problems. You're going to have situations that try you. You're going to have people that try you. And you're going to depend on somebody at some point in time in your life that may not show up for you when you really need them. All of these trials have hit everybody. They've all hit everybody. But one thing that you can do for yourself is be honest. Have good integrity. Know yourself. Be aware of who you are. Be aware of your capabilities. Be aware that you have the power inside of you to overcome all odds. Never look down on yourself. Always look up. Study to learn and to understand the things that you don't understand. Be honest. Have good integrity. I think that would be the first one that I would start off with, and I would build on that. The different aspects of how I feel like that applies, One thing about it is that when you are an honest person, when you've got integrity, you don't have fear. And honestly, that's the second thing that I would tell them, is to be fearless. Mm-hmm. What'd you say, bro?
Some deep stuff, man. I mean, because you're getting to what I would call developing a foundation, like a really strong foundation. And what foundation and would not be, it makes it so powerful is the foundation of being honest. I love it. I love it. Know yourself. The only thing I would add to knowing yourself is that that in itself is like a never-ending quest. So it's a never-ending quest to get to know who you are. Get to know who you are. I was on a call last night, and it was a Bible study call. And one of the things that we were talking about was humility. So one of the questions that was posed was, how have you matured? Like, actually, the question was how have you matured? The question was, has your perspectives changed as a Christian as you continue to learn more about God and Jesus, right? Have you changed different your outlooks, etc. And I I thought it was a pretty simple question to me, because I feel as though you should always be maturing. You're gonna start coming upon different experiences. One guy, an older guy, he's older. He's probably in his 80s, late 80s, and he mentioned, he said, when I was younger, I thought I knew it all, and I've said that quite on this show a couple of times. I said before I was 18, I knew everything, right? Because everything was so logical, and I tend to be a very logical person, so everything was just logical. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = 4. It's just simple. It doesn't necessarily have to be rocket science. But then when you throw in that human emotions, experiences, and our natural way of being, things start to get a little bit fuzzy. So for you to mention the being honest part in regards to the foundation is powerful to me. Knowing yourself, getting to know yourself, I think would be the term for it, because that's a never-ending journey. So I'm loving it. Here's something else, and I know we can both speak to this. Is that your boy looks like you, my two look like me. So sometimes when they're around and I'm watching them, and their mannerisms tend to be very similar to our mannerisms, because they're around us mimicking, exactly what it is we're doing. And then you pose a question, or you even make a comment to them. And I know I'm not the only one. I know you have this same, more than likely have this same experience. It's like, I am talking to myself. So how do I get through to a younger self? How do I get through to my younger self? Because I was hard. I was what the old people call hard-headed. I was what the old people call hard-headed, right? I just mentioned until I was 18, I knew everything. Until I hit my first tragedy, I just knew how I was going to react in life, right? And then life finds a way. We were talking about humility. Life will find a way to humble you, right? So how would you get through, and how do you get through, or at least feel like you get through to your younger ones?
Yeah, man. So interesting, right? All of a sudden, I just had like this almost like a deja vu type experience where I thought I was at Toastmasters, and this was the question of table topics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I got the bell. You ready?
You got the bell? I've never heard the bell. Never heard it. So how do I get through to my younger self? Well, I mean, honestly, I've never had that experience where I felt like I was talking to a younger version of myself, because when I look at my boy, I'm like, man, I didn't have what you have right here. I didn't have that, for me, I've been married I'm coming up on 24 years, right? And about 41 days or something like that. 24 years. 24 years is like the equivalent to the amount of hours in a day. There's 24 hours in a day, 24 years. There's an equivalence there. We're talking about numbers. You were talking about the number 33, which was extremely significant when dealing with Jesus, and I just feel like Jonah has had this opportunity that I haven't had, right? Like, he's had this opportunity to have both parents in the house for 11 years. 11 years. He's grown up with both of us. And he's been able to lean on both of us. Good, bad, or indifferent. It is what it is. I didn't have that. I had a stepdad that stepped in. And eventually, we parted our ways as well. I definitely appreciate him a lot more now today than I probably did some of those days when I was coming up, especially in my latter end, because I started smelling myself. For those of y'all out there for those of y'all that are a little bit younger out there, smelling yourself is when you start to think you all that and then some. That's what that means.
When that testosterone kicked in.
Yeah, I started smelling myself, and when I did, I started to lean in a different direction, and I didn't want him around anymore. My son has a deep love for me. I mean, it's extremely visceral. I can feel it, and I have a deep love for him. I believe he can feel it too. So I know that I put a lot into that, and I didn't have that when I was coming up. I didn't have that man that was putting that type of love into me. Even when I had my stepdad, I mean, I just never had a man that just would sit me down and say, hey, listen, this is not how you do that. This isn't it. Come here. Let me talk to you. And prove to me, make me feel it, lock it up inside of my bones, inject it inside of my veins, pour it inside of my eyes, feel it inside of my heart, to the point where I was like, this man loves me. This man loves me. And I believe I got that from my mother, because my mother made me feel that way. So I do that for my little boy. I pour it into him till his cup just runs over, till his eyes begin to leak, because it's important to me, and it's that important to me. So I feel like, brother, when I'm looking at him, that I've got to get it right, even though I know I only know what I know. And with what I know, I still could get it wrong.
Yeah, that's deep. That's deep. I guess my experience with mine is that I say something and then Elijah will reply, and I'm like, that's something I would say. You know what I mean? But I can't give him the credit to it, because oftentimes it's like, you kind of you might be stepping over your bounds here. Because when I was raised, you just didn't talk. You definitely weren't supposed to be talking back to your parents or asking questions. Although I probably did more than I probably can remember or care to admit. Because I was a very curious individual. I was very curious as a youngster. I wanted to know why things were the way they were. That was my biggest question, was the whys, the whys. And I get that from Elijah, where it's like, he wants to know why, and it's no longer enough to satisfy him by saying it just is, that's just the way it is. It's like, well, why is it that way? And so what I like to do, which was, I guess, a little bit different from growing up, this is just the way it was. I like to foster that curiosity in him, because that curiosity got me, I believe, to where it is that I am. That curiosity, having that curiosity to be able to question, certain traditions, certain ways of being, etc., and being able to see things with fresh eyes. I mean, because that's what these kids have. These kids have those fresh eyes. And then I also believe they don't necessarily have the, you being in your son's life, his mother being there as well. It's like they don't necessarily have that. Your son knows what a man looks like, because you're there. What a father looks like, because you're there. Someone who loves him through and through. There's no, you got to give, much love to the stepfathers out there. Some people would say it's almost like a thankless job. It's tough. I got to give it, the shout outs to the stepfathers who step in and they go through a lot of things. I've heard stepfathers who had to, were separated from the children and they have no rights. And they've, you have stepfathers who've raised children from, 1 to 10 or whatever. Like it's an interesting position to put someone in. And at the same time, raise another, but I definitely think there's a different kind of feeling between a child's perspective and having that biological father there. There's something there in regards to it. I'm not, listen, I gave the stepfather this shout out, but there's a thing about a biological child. It's their legacy, especially if they want to do it right. Some people may not necessarily know how. So to have that person there to look up to who looks like you more than likely, or has some kind of things that you take as well, it does make a difference. And it's cool that I get to see Jonah being able to have, Jonah and my two boys and your daughters, they get to have that experience and having us here as much as we can be.
Yeah, for sure. And what you were just talking about, that's a little bit of that is just them being the age that they are, like that is characteristic of an 11-year-old, of a 12-year-old, that preteen age where, young boys are really becoming young men, and these young men are really testing their boundaries. They're really trying to assert themselves. They want to become this individual, and that individualism is building up inside of them. And how we affect that can change who they become. They're not rock solid right then. You gave the reference to Jesus in 33, and another reference would be, as far as masonry goes, right? And we're just like knocking off rough edges. But the thing is that at the age of 11, 12, 13, honestly, there's only so many more rough edges that we as parents are going to be able to knock off. When a child starts to get around 15, 16, they are cementing themselves into who they will be in your household. There's not a whole lot unless it's a culture change. Now, the dynamics on a different continent would dictate a different type of result. But inside of America, children know at the age of 18, they go. Whether they choose to or not is up to them. But they understand, you got 1 or 2 more years with me, mom, dad. So 16 years of age, I'm going to hear you. You're going to hear me. And some of them are like, I'm just going to do my best to not offend you. Because when I turn 18, I'll do exactly what I want to do.
I'm out.
The law's already given me the right. I'm out, And so we are fighting against that here in America because, the children in our household, the development becomes before the age. The thought comes before the age. The desire comes before the age. So you're looking at 18, but at 16, they are already cementing that type of thought process, that type of mind. So at the age of 11 and 12, they are becoming the rough edges are coming out. Now they can still be, a unfinished stone, but rough edges are coming out. They are going to develop into that individual. When you see them at 16, know that that's probably going to be them for the next 7 to 10 years.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a whole lot of changes.
Right. And that's funny you said that. Because I left the house. I was earlier. I graduated school a little bit early, so I graduated high school at, I think I was 17. I was around 17, and so I knew I was, so the 16. When you were 16, when you mentioned it, I had a visceral feeling of my whole emotional mind state during that period of like, I just got to get, I don't want, when you said that, it's succinctly, I just don't want to offend anybody. Let me walk on these eggshells in this China, eggshells, and get up out of here as fast as I can. You know what I mean? Let me figure this thing out. And I remember even the summer, I was just like, I can't wait. I can't wait, to when I headed off to Tallahassee at that time. So I definitely agree with you on that. And so knowing that, and knowing, what you mentioned, the culture, Western culture, which is, it's interesting, especially at the place and time that we are. There's a lot going on with Western culture. One of them is the erosion of the family. As we start to see years pass, less and less people are getting married. Things are not, the traditional way is kind of, everything is kind of going in its opposite direction. That being said, the fathers no longer being in the households, and the laws protecting that, or pushing more towards on that side of it. What I've seen lately are the development of like the son husbands. You know what I mean? And these are young men who don't leave their mother's house, until they're 30, and then they probably move from their mother's house into their girlfriend's house, and that's essentially how it goes. And then if that doesn't work, they move back into their husband's house. So we're seeing a lot, especially, I wouldn't say necessarily millennials, but like the ones that were born in the 90s and up. That seems to be more prolific. And if you go back, you'll see that that's because the men, it's definitely in the African American demographic, were taken out of the household. And then you had currently and it's just like, and we spoke last week about it, just Black America being the canaries in the mines, right? So with that being said, and we know that now that, because our thing is a little bit different. Our situation is different because we are around our kids and allowing that. How do you get through to your children, the 12 to, what are you doing in order to get through to Jonah, who's 11, and then essentially he will be 16 to 17? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I'm glad you asked that, actually. But the thing is so with my children, I learned a whole lot through my eldest daughter, so with mine and with Jonah, listen, I'm not holding them to the fullest extent of every single law. Daddy McCullough, one of my mentors, he used to say this. When it came down to certain things, he said, you can bend all the way to the ground, just don't break. Mm-hmm. So just imagine a tree, as long as that tree stands, it can provide shade to those that are coming underneath to rest, and it can drop fruit down for them to eat and replenish. And for the birds of the air, it provides lodging. So a tree can do a lot of things, and it can help a lot of individuals. Now, if we as fathers are going to be the strong type of tree, our roots have to go deep, which means that we have to be replenished with a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding, and we have to be wise. A tree has the ability to bend in the midst of the storm. So when the hurricane comes, the tree will just sway, and then the pressure will release. As the wind comes, it sways. And then when the wind slacks up, it releases. And it has the ability to go with the wind, but it doesn't break. It'll bend. Its boughs will lay down to the ground and sweep the floor. But then afterwards, it comes back up. And even if it loses a branch or a piece, it still maintains its integrity so that it may be able to do its work. If we, as fathers, are anything like a tree, we have to be able to deliver the nourishment, the provision. We have to deliver the shade, the shelter. We have to deliver the nutrition or the words, the knowledge, the understanding to our children. And when they decide that they want to go with the wind, we have to sometimes allow the wind to even push us. and come back to our right position. We have to bend towards the ground. We have to be humble enough to even come down to the level of our children. And we have to be, and our roots being so deep that we can still remember how we made mistakes and how it affected us when someone said, what you did, and that was it, and walked away, and how we decided we would no longer be a part of that conversation or a part of that relationship based off of what someone said with their mouth or did. And then we have to make those adjustments. And so what do I do for my son? I allow him to make mistakes. I grab him. If I feel like that mistake is going to cause him pain that he will not be able to sustain, but if I feel like he can take it, then I'll encourage him through his pain, and I'll allow him to make that mistake. And then I'll teach him at the end of that mistake. And then I'll make a judgment call right then and there. If I feel like he learned from the mistake, I don't have any punishment for him. Why should I punish him when the error was punishment enough? If he's able to glean from the words that I am giving him, if he's able to pick up the fruit that I just dropped, I'd much rather him learn from that. He doesn't need me to slap him. He doesn't need me to tap him. He doesn't need me to become angry. He doesn't need for me to become frustrated, because he's nothing but a seedling. He doesn't know how to bear the weight that I can bear. So why should I act as if he can? That's why you said that word humble, honesty, integrity. It's got to be embedded inside of you so that you can see these things. You can be real with yourself.
Yep.
So you can be real with others.
Yep. Listen, I want to end the show right now. I want to end the show right now. The bending and not breaking, providing the stability, providing the wisdom when it's needed, and allowing them to make the decisions for themselves. There's really nothing more to add to that. And I think the only, it's just figuring out the balance, right? Because, figuring out the balance. Once we figure out, and we never figure it out. It's an ongoing thing, especially us as parents. Yeah, just figuring out the balance. But other than that, that's it. You just add those things, that balance, and that's what keeps it going. And having the humility to understand, listen, we were in the shoes, we were in that position before. What would we have wanted to hear at that point in time for our fathers or whoever was around us we're both fathers, or our fathers to tell us, right? To provide that information and saying, hey, listen, this is what it is. And then don't beat it over your head. I love that part too. I used to, I worked with kids for a long time. And there was a time when you used to have conversations with them, and you wouldn't, and I started noticing when their eyes used to glaze over. So now when their eyes used to glaze over, even if you had made a valid point, you more than likely lost it at that point. So the repetition of telling them this and telling them, no, you make a point. Should we even have shorter attention spans now? Make the point and then let it go. But other than that, I mean, what that wise words from Daddy McCullough, be the tree and bend and not break. I have nothing further to add. I think I don't want people's minds to glaze over either. I want them to get that from this conversation. Men, bend, don't break. Be the tree. Always allow them to kind of go off, and then also be there for them. You mentioned being in 18 and having to, in your mind, you got to leave. And when I leave, I'm never coming back. Nah, let's not, I don't think any successful family or any successful people ever did it that way. They allowed them, because that allows them to say, hey, I can make a mistake. Dad's got my back. And we have to be that in this day and age when like I spoke earlier, there was a time and period where they were taking men out of households. I don't know what's going on with Western culture now. Like I said, we do know that it's the Western culture, the eradication of the family. Even so, we need to be, as the men and the fathers, to be there as trees to provide shade and nourishment for those that have decided they may want to go out. Hey, there's always here, you know what I mean, and to instill that in them. So I think that this is time well spent. I love it, guys. I'm done. Nothing else.
I just want to mention just maybe a couple things, and I'll keep them short. But one of them is, as I was mentioning, be fearless, and it leans back into that piece about, bend don't break. Because one of the things that, especially for young men, that we want to encourage them is to be fearless, not be afraid of risk. Without risk, you don't normally get any benefit. You have to apply a risk versus benefit analysis. But if you sit up in fear, you may not get anywhere in life. So when we are pushing our young men to be fearless, we have to understand that at the age that they are at, fearlessness looks different than what it does if you're 30, 40, 50, or 60 years old. Fearlessness shows up in a different way. And so you have to be prepared for that, because if I know that I teach my son that. I teach him to be fearless. And when I see it show up, I have to make sure that I don't eradicate the lesson. See, sometimes there's a saying, cut off your nose to spite your face. Throw out the baby with the bathwater. But we don't want to do those things. You just want to drain the water out. You want to keep the baby. And just because you don't like the way your nose looks or the way your face looks, doesn't mean you cut your nose off. Those just aren't things that should be going hand in hand. And too many times, especially in, like you were mentioning, Western culture, especially here, we do extreme things to correct something. And that extremism can actually take away from what you're attempting to build, what you're attempting to grow. So I would say, I would teach them fearlessness. And the last one, just to be confident, which I feel like is not something that is being taught as much anymore. You got to teach children to be confident. You have to give them understanding of what confidence is, what courageousness is. You have to give them examples, and you have to make it plain sometimes. And see, to be humble is to not boast of yourself. But in the midst of children, you do have to let them know, hey, I just want you to understand that at this point in time between you and me, I am being courageous. And let me tell you the reason why. Use yourself as an example. Doesn't mean you need to go out on the street corner, stand on a soapbox and say, hey, I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man. But when you are there with your son, you definitely need to open that door for him. Because if he is emulating what you do, you need to give him the direct understanding of why you do what you do. Because he's going to translate it in his mind and maybe come out with something different. But allow time for growth, experience, and life. Like our elders used to tell us and still do. Son, keep on living.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Listen, you're right. There's not a lot of powerful men walking out here, and it's important to be that example. Awesome, brother.
Let's do it. Let's do it. I know. Listen, y'all, it's about that time. We're getting ready to close on out. It's a short episode today. We are hoping that everybody out there is all right, and that you understand, that we enjoy doing these shows. We love coming in here. We love sharing this information. Please remember, subscribe, DM us, follow us. All right. Listen, I'm loving it. We're looking at the YouTube, and it keeps on clicking and ticking and ticking and ticking and talking. And we love to know that you all are enjoying this. We thank you for all of the words that you put out there. So at this time, we're going to get ready to close on out. Thanks for supporting us. Remember, the Community Beacon is all about liberty. And what we discuss and teach are all to help listeners to gain, as well as ourselves, the more open mind, the more freer mindset, so that you can reach your highest potential. Don't forget to tune in next week, because we're going to be closing out our discussion on the younger self. All right. It's going to be a complete recap of what we've done over this month. All right. Like I said before, love, subscribe, follow, hit the little bell up there in the corner, notifications on, Community Beacons on. That's your man, Michael Seville. I'm Joel Simmons. We love you. God bless. Peace.